Good afternoon and hello, everyone. It's getting darker earlier and I'm already thinking about eating good food and spending time with family next week. So it must be time for our November speaker series. We have a great show in store for you today. So we are the Center for Future Educators at TCNJ, and our goal is to recruit the next generation of future educators from middle and high schools around the state and maybe even some elementary schools. I'm your host, Dr. Jean Del Coli, the Executive Director of the Center for Future Educators at the College of New Jersey. The purpose of our speaker series is to provide future educators in New Jersey the opportunity to see the many facets of the profession, and we hope to provide some inspiration. All of our speaker series events are recorded and available for use on our website to view. Check us out on our YouTube station if you haven't done so already. We'll have the Q&A box available for later in the program, and this is a reminder that the program is being recorded and will be available on our CFE website next week. So it also takes a collaboration to make the CFE and its programming possible. And for this, we would like to thank the NJEA, who graciously funds us because their support means that we are able to bring programming like this to all of you. Today's guest is the 2022-2023 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year, Christine Girtain, a teacher of environmental science and authentic research at Toms River North and South. Is it authentic research or biology or both? Environmental?
It's all, I teach authentic science research. I just teach the research class, but I did teach biology and I did teach an environmental earth science class for 22 years.
So she teaches everything, right? Everything science, everything STEM.
I have a comprehensive certification.
Clearly, she's done a lot. So I'm not going to tell you too much about her now because I know she's going to explain a little about her story and how she got to where she is in her presentation today. So I'm not going to spoil it, but I will tell you, if you are a fan of environmental issues and sustainability, then this is going to be something that you really want to tune into. Last but certainly not least, we have our magnificent moderator, Kimberly Dixteen Hughes, the Shakespearean sage, who also happens to be the 2020 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year and an English language arts teacher at Haddonfield Memorial High School. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Christine so that you can start your presentation, and then Kim and I will follow up with some questions in a little while.
Hi, everybody. I'm pretty excited to be here with you today and to just share the passion that I have for education and for the job that I do teaching and the interactions that I have with not only other teachers, administrators, custodians, bus drivers, but the students that I teach as well. So as they said before, I am the 2022-2023 New Jersey State Teacher of the Year, and I am from Toms River, New Jersey. You can follow me on Twitter, so my shameless plug. I will be talking a little bit about building a STEM and agricultural literacy pipeline, but first I'm going to take you through a little background on myself. So I was born in Brooklyn. Both of my parents were from Brooklyn, and a lot of my family had immigrated there. I am a first generation, college student, so neither of my parents went to college. And my parents found out very quickly that they could afford a house in Toms River for the same amount that they were paying in rent for the apartment in Brooklyn. So it was a no-brainer, and we moved down to the Jersey Shore just before I turned 4 years old. I went all through Toms River schools. I was actually at 3 different elementary schools in town because of some overcrowding and then us moving. And then I went to Toms River High School North, which is one of the 2 schools where I teach. I graduated there in 1990. I had played basketball my whole life and went off to TCNJ. So I went to TCNJ to become a biology teacher, and also I wanted to learn how to be a coach. I did some coaching for basketball. My senior year at TCNJ, I actually got to do half of my student teaching at Trenton Central, and then the other half of my teaching at St. Martin's College in England. And that was just a fabulous experience, getting to meet teachers from another country, learn about their spiral curriculum, and differently than the other schools that I had been in, and yet very similarly to what we were doing back here in the States. St. Martin's has actually changed names now, I'm not sure, but it was in Lancaster, England. I was also one of the second year of students to be inducted into the Tri Beta Biology Honor Society, and I was the last class of graduates from TCNJ and any college in New Jersey to have what's called a comprehensive science certification. So I was certified in every science, the earth sciences, environmental, biophysics, chemistry, and I think I covered them all. I got a job teaching in Toms River, and I've been teaching there for the last 28 years. So my teaching career actually started at one of the other 3 high schools in Toms River High School South. And I got a coaching job. So I was coaching basketball at Toms River High School East. So of the 3 high schools in Toms River, I've been at all 3 of them in one fashion or the other, with one hat or another. I've taught biology, I've taught earth science, and currently I'm teaching a 3-year research class at 2 different high schools in Toms River. I've also been the advisor and started the Students for Africa Club, which now the younger sisters of the students that I founded that with are now in the school and also in my research class. So that's pretty exciting. And we also started the recycling club that now my bestie Charlene Wallace runs as the Alliance for Sustainability at Toms River High School South. And I will be nominating her for Teacher of the Year at our school. So I went on to get my graduate degree from Kean University. And one of the most important things that my brother-in-law did for me was he kept asking me, when are you going to go to grad school? When are you going to go to grad school? And I really needed that push. So I really want you guys to think about not stopping with a bachelor's. For those of you that are high school students, if there are any pre-service teachers, or even just early career educators that might be watching this, go to grad school, because grad school definitely upped my teaching and made me aware of more opportunities that were happening both in the state and then also across the country. So I'm very thankful to Kean University for the master's degree that I got there in earth science instruction and curriculum. It made me exposed to teachers that were involved in the New Jersey Earth Science Teachers Association. So I've been the treasurer of that for quite a long time. So from 2003 to the present, I've been associated with them and actually been their treasurer. And I've also had opportunities because of that position to partner with Temple University on an NSF grant, and was a lead teacher when we looked at scaffolding for certain earth science concepts. We presented our work at the 2015 National Science Teachers Association conference in Philadelphia, which was convenient for me because I was able to drive there, and I'd never been exposed to a national conference before. And then we also presented at the New Jersey Science Teachers Convention for that. And I have to say, Najesta, the New Jersey Earth Science Teachers Association, really got me involved in becoming a teacher leader and going and presenting at conferences to other teachers. The first publication I had was because of this partnership on the NSF grant with Temple University, and that was in the National Earth Science Teachers Association Journal. Because I was able to get sponsored to go to this national conference, I was able to learn about a program that later led to a lot of the biotechnology I did. And then also, like I said before, I was able to present at the New Jersey Science Teachers Conference. And I was looking for different STEM opportunities for my own kids. My daughter was probably in 5th or 6th grade at that time. And I came across a booth that was called Camp Invention. And it's a national STEM camp that's supported by the Inductors Hall of Fame and the United States Patent Department. There weren't any camps in my county, in Ocean County. When they looked on the map for me, I would have had to have driven an hour to bring my daughter and my son at that time to the camp. So they asked me if I wanted to be a director of one of the camps. And so I started the first Camp Invention in Ocean County in 2015. And now there are 6 different Camp Invention locations, 4 of which I initiated and got funding through the Navy to start. And now those schools are running them themselves. I mentioned before at Temple University that I was able to go to the National Science Teachers Association conference in Philly. And that's where I got exposed to something right here in New Jersey that I had to go to a national conference to find out about. And in science, that's the case. If you get an NSF grant, part of that grant is that you have to present at a national conference. And so I think it's super important that districts try to find funding to send teachers not only to their state conferences for whatever your subject is, but also to national conferences, because you might find out about things that are happening, right in your backyard, because they have to present at these national conferences. So I started and got trained, did the first biotech training I've ever had. I didn't know how to micropipette. I had never run gel electrophoresis or done any kind of bioinformatics. And now I do that with my students, and my students are published for DNA sequences that they've isolated. And then Jeff is holding a 3D model of the specific protein that our students isolated during this project. And that was kind of exciting to see that realized and then actually have that printed. The New Jersey State Teachers Association conference also led to me meeting a guy named Richard Sham. And he owns a company called Mini One. And he sponsored me to go not only to Salem, Massachusetts for training for Wolbachia, but let me know the original training that I went to that was through Mass Bio. So they have a division called Mass Bio Teach and Mass Bio Ed. And I went up to MIT for training. I don't drive far away really well. And I had a bunch of the English and history teachers that I'm friends with. I had grant money to pay for the hotel room. So I said, who wants to go on a road trip? And we all jumped in the car and we went up to Massachusetts. They toured Boston for the day, and I stayed in Cambridge for the training. And I'm going to get into explaining what Wolbachia is a little later, but know and remember, this guy, Richard, because he actually goes on to sponsor some underserved students that I have, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. I went up to this Mass Bio training, not only at MIT, but then I spent a summer, a week-long biotech training at UMass Amherst, and it was sponsored by this same group. So Mass Bio and Mass Bio Ed, which is a smaller division of them, they actually take a certain percentage of different companies. So Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, a lot of those companies are also in Massachusetts, and part of their money to be a part of this group goes directly towards education. So one of my goals in the future is really to try to increase the bandwidth of Bio New Jersey, because right now they don't have the bandwidth to support education outreach. And I'd really love it if our New Jersey teachers were able to get the biotech training here in New Jersey and not have to drive to Massachusetts. So that's definitely on my bucket list of things to do. These are some of my friends that I made at UMass, but the one with the reddish hair is Dr. Pirchi Waxman, and she and I have formed a Global Wolbachia partnership with our students.
And she's freezing up a little bit, but that's okay. We'll get back to it.
This made me really excited to want to go, to enter the science classrooms in my school and think about all of the work that they're doing. All I keep thinking about is that what's happening in the classroom next to me as Christine's talking. And I'm really excited to hear more about the environmental work that she's also done. So I know that she'll be talking about that at some point, but it's really incredible to see how much community is around what we teach. I'm really floored, just kind of as she's going through this whole timeline, right? There's so much that's been available to her and to all educators if you seek it, right?
Yes. And there are so many professional organizations that teachers can join that will help them form that community of people who are, like-minded, who love the same subjects they do. I know in social studies, there was the New Jersey Council and the National Council for the Social Studies. So there's the American Historical Association. I know you do a lot with Shakespeare, don't you, Kim?
Yes, with the Folger Shakespeare Library and NCTE. And so really, there are communities for all content areas, which is really lovely. And there's so much that you can also learn from the different content areas. So even though I am not in the sciences, there's certainly something I can learn from Christine and you and different content specialists. And so it's very exciting to see, like, again, what the person's doing next door, how that could impact your classroom,
Mhm.
regardless of what you intend to teach.
And as social studies, of course, there's always the history of science. So
totally.
what has happened up until this point? What has been successful in terms of experimentation and what hasn't? Where is it on the trajectory of solving problems? And this brings us to even more when we talked about in yours, Kim, the whole sustainability idea, the United Nations Development Goals, right? So how can we use the science and the history and the English to help everyone and the math and many other things that could be involved as well? How can that help us and help students think about solving problems that are out there in the world today, which I think is, a big thing, a big push for educators, right? It's not about, it's not just about what profession do you want to be in, but it's why do you want to be in this profession? What problems do you want to solve? How can you help society and help the next generation? Yeah.
And also thinking about like the possible professions within your classroom.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
my 25 students, there's 25 different directions that they could go in.
Mhm.
And you never know like which lesson or which connection or which partnership or which unit is going to light a fire and ignite that interest and that passion, which I am right now. My students are conducting research for their Oedipus essay, and they use Oedipus the King as their inspiration to write about societal blindness and willful ignorance. And they pick a topic that society willfully ignores, right? And taking the warning of what happens in Oedipus and applies that to an area of interest of their own. And every year I have students who pick topics around climate change or climate action. I have a student writing about deforestation this year, and another student writing about the climate impact on animal populations. And again, you never know, what you're tapping into, what future, right, you are inspiring with anything that you do in your classroom. And so it sounds like Christine does a lot of that.
Yes.
Which is really exciting.
And I just, it reminds me of, I was just listening to a podcast the other day, Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History, that talked about burden of proof, right? And being able to solve problems and what sort of evidence do you need in order to really determine that there is something that is just, that it is a problem and not simply a personal anecdote, and how to move beyond that. So we have Christine back with us. Welcome back.
Hi guys, sorry about that.
Hi. Technical difficulties, they happen sometimes.
Okay, so that was my son, and the students got to extract DNA from mosquitoes. And then they also, it's called barcoding, and they were able to look for the prevalence of a bacterium called Wolbachia. And I'm about to explain what that is on the next slide. So Wolbachia is found in insects all over the world naturally in about 60 to 70%, but it was not found specifically in Aedes aegypti mosquitoes. They just, hadn't had it at that point. And so scientists put this bacteria in these mosquitoes, and they found that it blocked the spread of dengue and Zika. So if it bites a human that's infected with the virus, and then it goes on to bite somebody else, that person actually can't get the pathogens from the mosquito from that bite, like would usually happen. And they're not sure of that mechanism. They're looking into that now. And the students here in the United States are working on this project with a lab called the Bordenstein Lab that was at Vanderbilt and is now at Penn State. So they're closer to me, and I'm going to be having them come to visit us in New Jersey. Some of the skills the students are learning, again, are micropipetting. They're learning how to extract DNA from these insects to look for either, in this case, specific microbes, or to identify what species these mosquitoes are. Because I was given a whole bunch of mosquitoes partnering with the Ocean County Mosquito Commission. And then 12 of my students were actually published for DNA sequences that they isolated from the mosquitoes from the Ocean County Mosquito Commission. I then wanted to expand the opportunities that my students had. And I had talked a little bit about the camp invention, but then I wanted to make opportunities for the middle and high school students. So I started not only an intro to technology camp, but I also did an enzyme camp. And that guy, Richard Chan, that I mentioned before, he actually gave me $3,000 in order to fund underserved students to attend the camp, because I had to pay $8,000 for a scientist from Cold Spring Harbor to come down and train us on how to run these camps, because they're their camps. They run these out in Long Island. And I emailed them and pestered them probably about 3.5 years before they said, okay, we'll come down and we'll train you how to do this, because you're not in competition for the same number of kids in the same location because you're so far away. And they gave me the green light. So now we do this DNA barcoding camp for high school students, a biocoding camp where they're using Python to analyze DNA sequences, and they use HIV as the model for that. And then an enzyme camp where they got to make lactose-free milk, cheese, and then they also looked at enzymes in liver. In 2020, my friend from Israel, who I partner with a Global Wolbachia project, she was able to come and visit my students at both high schools, and then she was also a guest speaker at our Rotary Club. Pirchi and I actually have to get back to her on WhatsApp. We made a project so that the kids could take a look at this prevalence in both Israel and in the United States, and work together across time zones, and also work with students from a different culture, and work with students that had English as a second language. So these were all great 21st century skills that students were getting exposed to in high school, and learning how to manage projects across continents. One of the students said to me, you told me to do the Wolbachia project, but I really didn't realize what that would mean for me. And now it's a breeze writing my college essay, because I can talk all about the Wolbachia project and how I worked with the Israeli students and what I learned from them. So it was that really nice aha moment when the kids realize that, you're telling them things for a reason, and that will make their life easier, and also expose them maybe to things they didn't even know were possible as far as careers. I'd like to share with you now a video, and I want you to pipe in, Kimberly or Jeannie, if it does not play or if you can't hear it, since I have changed devices. But I made this for a group called the STEM Teacher Leadership Network, and this was just showcased across the country from November 7th to November 15th. And there were 30 different videos from teachers all over, from elementary school teachers all the way up through high school teachers. And this is the video that I put together for that highlights that STEM pipeline I've been building. My name's Christine Girtain, and I'm the New Jersey State.
It plays.
I have been building a K-12 student and educator STEM pipeline of summer programs and student research experiences. By building a network of partners, teacher leaders can increase student and teacher exposure to STEM so that their lens is more global and their idea of what is possible becomes broader. How do we prepare students for future careers, many of which don't even exist yet? We can create classrooms and experiences that give students agency, so when they face those future problems, they have the tools to create solutions. Students can partner with the Army Education Outreach Program and be like Katie, interviewing scientists from across the globe. They can share their research at fairs like ISA. Have your students learn how to communicate science to the public through poster presentations and symposia. Start with the staff at your school and then branch out. We built the base of our STEM pipeline with Camp Invention.
I love Camp Invention because we got to make things like beaver parachute, sustainable housing, a microphone, a robotic fish, and things like that. I like Camp Invention because number one, you learn things. Number two, you invent things. Number three, you do fun things. And you can't get any better than that.
In 2017, we took students to Costa Rica to do research on leafcutter ants and the fungus that they farm. The students got to dig up colonies, take a look at the queen, and learn about the symbiotic relationship between the fungus garden and the ant colony. Presently, there's no cases of antibiotic resistance within those colonies. Middle school and high school teachers can apply to be a part of the next cohort of teachers for Nourish the Future. It is predicted that the world population will reach 9 billion by 2050, and we will need to double our food production while using the same amount of land. Fueling and feeding the world in 2050 will demand new technologies, new techniques, and new environmental practices be developed, thus fueling the need for new STEM careers. Nourish the Future increases agricultural literacy in teachers. On the Farm STEM is another opportunity for middle school and high school teachers to meet farmers and cattlemen around the country. High-paying, high-tech jobs exist in agriculture and are waiting to be filled so we can feed and fuel the world that is yet to come. We ensure sustainable food production by supporting agricultural and STEM literacy to support the K-12 career pipeline.
So that's just a little, something that's also important is making sure that you are being an advocate for what you're passionate about and doing outreach so that you're reaching not only the students in your class, but also reaching other teachers. So I'm pretty passionate about that. I talked about, reaching other teachers, and to do that, you make partnerships with not only universities, but also with different industrial groups and companies. And this one, the National Aviation Research and Technology Park, is down by the Atlantic City Airport. And they sponsored a teacher training workshop for me so that other teachers could learn about camp invention and then bring that to their districts in New Jersey. Some of the other professional societies, and I'd say no matter what subject you're going to teach or you get interested in, find out what state and national societies there are that will support what you do, not only as a teacher, but in maybe putting you in contact with local people like the Rotary. My students go to the local Rotary Club and they get a free lunch and they present their research to the Rotary so that they know what's going on in the schools. And Rotary also supports college scholarships. So it's a win-win for those students to have that exposure. And to make sure, whether it's an honor society like Sigma Xi or getting involved in the Civil Air Patrol. I didn't know what the New Jersey Farm Bureau was until about 2 years ago. And now I'm a member so that I can, make a connection with my local people and find out what they're doing in agriculture, because I really didn't know anything about agriculture until about 3 years ago. And I've been trying to make sure that everybody's information about agriculture gets increased, because it's important for us to know where our food comes from and to make sure that we're keeping it sustainable and that we're developing a workforce that will eventually be able to feed all of us. I would also say, if you're going into science, to get involved with national STEM groups. So CUBES is a group of college professors and community college professors that they, said they could let some high school teachers in. And I've had some fabulous experience with them. We've done an antibody hackathon, and then the Micro Nanotechnology Education Center is through Penn State. So I've worked in a networking group with teachers from across the country, helping to teach them about nanotechnology. And Penn State actually paired me up with another teacher in North Jersey that they were working with, that the two of them wouldn't have known each other otherwise. And then we both wound up as finalists for the Presidential Award in Excellence in Math and Science Teaching, along with a third person that we don't know. So she and I, we had that opportunity to get to know each other in a way that we wouldn't have had if we weren't both connected, to this Micro Nanotechnology Education Center. The Agricultural Genome to Phenome Initiative is also mostly college professors, and they're thrilled to have any of the high school teachers that are interested in getting involved. They have grant money to do workshops, and I learn a lot just as far as the biotechnology and how that's infused through agriculture. Infiniscope is a group that I work with at the University of Arizona, and I was just in Arizona yesterday, and I didn't realize how close I was to ASU. And I called the woman that I work with there to try to see if I could see her, and she was leaving just as I was getting there to go to a NASA conference. And so we just missed each other, because I thought, what are the chances that I'm going to be in Phoenix again? And I hadn't thought about it to plan ahead. As far as networking with PhDs, peers in industry, I always tell anybody that's in science, the scientists are all on Twitter. You have to find where your people are and what social media presence they have. For some groups that might be Facebook, for other groups that might be Instagram. But for me, my key ones are definitely Twitter, because the scientists get social credit for answering your questions and answering the students' questions on Twitter. Everybody can see that they responded to the little high school kid. LinkedIn, I would tell you to really make a LinkedIn page and use that as your digital resume. The things that you're doing, the things that you feel passionate about, want to promote, put that on LinkedIn and make that network of people. You never know when one of those LinkedIn members are going to be someone you run into at a conference. And I ran into 3 different people I hadn't met in person. And we took pictures together out in Indianapolis on Friday and Saturday to, kind of show everybody then on social media that we got to meet up and make those personal connections after being digital friends. I also use Skype a Scientist to reach scientists that are interested in doing outreach already, to find potential mentors for my students. So, leverage what's out there and figure out what works well for the group that you're interested in. Lastly, I've written over $185,000 worth of grants. These are the ones I've obtained. And I just want to say thank you to all of these groups, because they are the groups that I got the funding from. The Grunin Foundation gave me $15,000 in order to take 4 underserved kids to Costa Rica. That was a big ask. It was an expensive one. Science for Society has also funded underserved students for science for me. The Rice family does a matching donation. So that's a former student's father, his family, they donate money to my research program, and the Blackboard Giving Fund matches it because it's through his work. So if you know people that are able to do that, it's super helpful. The Navy, definitely big supporters. The Chrysalis Fund is the American Entomology Society. They've supported any work that I've done with insects, and of course, NJEA. IEEE is an engineering group. The New Jersey STEM Pathways Network and Walmart both have grants that you can fill out as teachers, and AIAA also does outreach for students that are interested in engineering and also trying to get them interested in aeronautics and astronautics. And that's all I have for you guys today. So I hope that you learned something and that you were able to get a good sense of what I'm trying to build and the passion that I have for education.
Woo! Christine, I am inspired and humbled to be in your company. After that presentation, there is just always more work to do, but it's also so rewarding to see how much you have made happen for your community and students. So first and foremost, thank you for just showing us how it's done. But something I think that everyone in this call might be wondering is what experience or moment inspired your passion to pursue the sciences? What was that moment and inspiration for you?
So I always wanted to be a teacher. Since the first time I had that conscious thought was 5th grade, but I didn't know what I wanted to teach. When I got into high school, Jeanette Solosky was my biology teacher, and I just really took to it. I did well, right? I was like a sponge, and it sucked in. And then I had this crazy in a good way AP biology teacher, Don Holmquist, who was always frantic. We're frantic. We have to fit everything in for AP. And I really liked it, the two of them, how they approached it and what they did. So I liked that content and what they did with us. And then that's why. But I was split between English actually and biology, because I love to read, but I can't spell. That's my skill. And I blame my parents because they have a heavy Brooklyn accent and they mispronounce things. Like souvenir, they always said Sylvanier. And I looked that up in a dictionary, before there was internet, people, and before there was Google. I was in a dictionary in high school trying to find it for an essay. And I was looking up Sylvanier, S-I-L-V. And I called my friend. I said, I can't find it in the dictionary everywhere. Where is that? And she said, it's French. It's Souv. Yeah.
Well, I think you've done well with your choice. Given all of your experiences and that motivation, Like, why, in your opinion, are the sciences so crucial for students to engage in as you have engaged them?
As I have engaged them, for my research class, they all come in wanting to study psychology or cancer because that's their exposure. And I don't care what they choose. I just want them to know that there are other choices. And if I don't increase my knowledge of those other choices, then it really limits what my students can do.
Yeah.
And so that has been, I always joke that like education and learning is my drug. I don't drink, I don't smoke. What do you do? I do education, right? and I learn. So I'm always like, where can I go to a new workshop? Where can I learn something new? You know,
Really?
where's their conference? I can go and see what they have at each of the different booths and what's the latest technology. My husband's like, oh boy, here you go again. You just came back to the conference. You're on this high, you know, calm down a little, bring it down and breathe, right? Because you get excited.
Well, before we jump to your conference life, just one more question about just your thoughts on the sciences and your personal beliefs, whether it's environment, biology, you know, is that reflected in your classroom? And do you incorporate like your personal like lens like in your teaching, or do you make a really active effort to try to separate your engagement in the sciences from your students' work?
And so part of it, probably there's got to be a lens someplace just because of what I wind up at, right?
Yes.
And so it is heavy on the biotech, but I've really tried to increase the engineering with the partnerships with the aerospace industry and the Navy. And, you know, Camp Invention is all engineering based. And so I've tried to broaden what I can expose them to, but it definitely came from biology undergrad, right? And so my initial interests with the biotech stuff, but now I was able to bring the coding into that, right? With the Python and having them analyze. There is that lens of biology. They're learning coding, but they're learning the coding in order to analyze DNA sequences, convert them to RNA, and then convert them to protein sequences. You know, so there is that definite flavor, right, to some of it. I have kids that do psychology projects. I have some kids studying depression. I have a student that built a 21-foot solar powered boat, right? So there's all like, it goes in all directions. And I try to tell them, I'm putting this in front of you. I have no skin in the game on whether you choose this or not. These are options.
Yeah.
And I don't care if you like this or if you don't like it. I have, you know, that doesn't bother me. You're not going to disappoint me by not taking this shiny little toy that I put in front of you as an option. You have to like what you're doing, because you will waste my time and they'll waste their time if they're miserable, you know, studying something because they think I want them to do it.
Yeah, I often find myself with my students, I say, like, I'm often saying, like, it's no matter, you know, to me, like, if you like or dislike X, but I want you to understand and appreciate X for what it could open up for you.
Yep.
And so I feel that deeply, even in my English classroom life, which might look a little different. but so in the interest of time, I want to jump to your conference life. So we'll get to your husband's, oh no, what's Christine up to next? How do you do it? Like, how do you balance, you know, your responsibilities as an educator and then all of the conference work and organization work and partnership work and research work that you do to support that? Like, how do you balance it?
My house is a mess. My husband will tell you, all the years that we have been married, I have promised him every summer that I'm going to clean the garage out. And every summer, Christine finds something to do and finds something to go to, or goes and travels to Tennessee to tour the beef industry with teachers. And then, oh, she was busy. And I hate cooking. So my sister-in-law cooks a lot for me. My sister-in-law, Lori, shout out to you, Lori, for feeding us. Yeah, so I'm not super domestic. My passions are not there. I definitely give time to what I love, and that's spending time with my family. We go hiking a lot, and we have a lot of soccer in our family and some basketball. So I do that as far as family time. My husband, I have 28 nieces and nephews.
Wow.
A lot of them live locally. So I was the, you know, van driver because I got early. So I would go to daycare and I would say, Jimmy, Jamie, Josh, Allie, get in the car. And I would always have to have an 8-seater van because I would fill it and it would have multiple car seats in it at different times to take everybody home. We'd all do homework together. And then we'd go over to my sister-in-law's when she got home from work. I'd drop her kids off there. She'd feed us all. So it definitely it takes a village. And
Yeah.
And that's how it's run. So yeah, I need to clean my house before Thanksgiving.
Well, that's very human. That's very relatable. I understand that also deeply. But the year of Teacher of the Year, kind of at sometimes you feel a little superhuman. You feel humbled by a lot of things, but you'll have a lot of opportunity to explore your passions even further. So what are some of your hopes for your 6-month sabbatical as part of the Educator of the Year program in New Jersey? You have 6 months to work with the Department of Education, but also pursue your passions. Do you have a goal? Any hopes, dreams? What's the plan, Christine?
I know the County Teachers of the Year are trying to work with NJEA to get rid of SGOs. So that's one of the things on the agenda for my cohort as a whole. And Daryl Dietrich is, kind of spearheading that with some of the other county teachers of the year. For me, I definitely want to visit schools all over the state to find out best practices and what they're doing. I'm also going to get support from a few, different places, the American Farm Bureau, the Corn Growers Association, Nourish the Future are groups that I work with. They're going to help me in bringing resources to different schools and getting teachers involved in professional development that maybe haven't been able to go to that professional development before. So they're planning on coming out here and, working with me on a few things. We have that in the pipeline. And then, I just want people to be a little more connected to where their food comes from. You heard my little speech at NJEA. Did you know that popcorn and corn were 2 different things?
Like I did know that, but it just.
But how did you know that? Like, when did you learn that? Because no one in my school knows this.
Yes. So my mother-in-law actually told me this fun fact many moons ago, and it was one of those things that I had no idea. But so she had the same thing.
You were
like,
married.
did you know? Yes.
Right.
Yes,
you were
yes.
married when you
Yes.
And so
Last 3 years of my life.
Growing up knowing that the sweet corn, the sweet Jersey corn, right, is not popcorn. That popcorn is a whole different plant. And I tell people that. My brother was like, mind blowing, right? Because we just thought it was something you did to the corn on the cob, not a whole separate plant that is popcorn. Now, called popcorn, right? Like, I thought it was a process. I didn't know it was a thing.
What you just brought up, and I'm not going down the popcorn lane, but I am going down the agriculture lane. Could you tell us a little bit more of the work that you do with agriculture and the environment? You talked a lot about DNA, camp invention, but especially being a product of the Garden State, right? This is so near and dear to our heart, and really we should think about our relationship to our food and the entire supply chain. My husband works in food distribution, and so that's really close to home for me. So could you tell us a little bit about the work that you have done with agriculture?
Sure. So I've taken teachers to tour the beef industry in Oklahoma and Tennessee. I took high school teachers to Tennessee from New Jersey, and then I took middle school teachers to Oklahoma last year. And I will be taking some teachers from New Jersey to tour the dairy industry. I don't know what time. There'll be April, June, and July options, and I don't know which one that I'm doing yet. Depends on my schedule and some of the teacher schedules. But looking at sustainability, like how do we do these things? And for example, in dairy, I was out with dairy farmers and industry people. So like Walmart, Kroger's, like all of these people, you're talking about food supply things, were at this sustainable dairy conference because they want to know how to do things better. And I didn't know if you sell something to Walmart, if you sell something to Coca-Cola, you have to do a whole report on sustainability, and they have to okay it and give you a certificate to say that you are doing what you're doing for your product in a sustainable way that meets their standards, not just federal and state standards. And each company may have different requirements. And so they all have to do that. And we, like in the 1940s, there were 26 million dairy cows. Now we get more milk with 9 million. So we went from 26 million to 9 million. So we're doing a better job at what we're doing. We're doing it more efficiently. And they want to have discussion on how we do that even better, right? How do we conserve water? How do we use land better? Because we're building on a lot of our farmland and selling it for houses. And we're going to have to feed more people on the same amount of land or less.
Yeah. Why do you think that's important for our students and educators to understand?
Because when they think about careers, none of the ones in my high school think about agriculture. So if you're going to be a coder, know that there's a job where you could be doing coding that's handling data that's from agriculture just as well as sports or medical things. If you're teaching genetics, teach it through the lens of not only human disease, but agriculture. Because if the kids don't have it in their storylines, they don't know, they're not connected to it happening, right? And it's not even on their radar to be thinking about it. And we need them to be thinking about it because food is a basic need for life, right? And it's one of the sustainability goals for the United Nations, right, is to end food insecurity. And that's not going away anytime soon, especially with populations rising. So it will always be something to make sure that we are putting an effort into solving.
Yeah, it's incredibly important work. And when you tour the state, you might see that there's more focus on this concern. And when you visit Salem County and you start seeing all the different farms, and like, that's something I recognized when I had the opportunity to go to Salem County, and you have students doing work in farming and farm sciences. And it really is very different in ag science than maybe directly in Camden County where I teach, right? And so you'll have an opportunity.
2% of the world feeds us, right? 2%, I should say the United States, 2% of the United States are farmers.
Have you had
98% of the farms are family owned.
Wow.
Yeah.
But we could probably keep going on and on and on about farming, but because it's so important. But I want to get to at least 2 more questions from our students that are just about general teaching. And so I suppose we can end before handing this over to Jeannie. You talked a lot about all of the different areas in the sciences that matter to you, that should matter deeply to others. What are those methods of teaching? And I think you've touched on it a little bit, but really that nourish curiosity and a love for learning in your students, specifically in the sciences. Like, what is the method that you think works best?
For me or in general? Because I don't have a traditional classroom anymore.
Let's say in general, and then for you, we'll separate as you
say it again.
In general, and then for you, sort of separate them.
So in general, when I had earth science and biology classes, I think my excitement and my love for what I did, and I think you can connect with that as well, the kids would comment on that, right? They would comment on the fact that they were excited because I was excited and they just couldn't help being excited, right? And I had touched on that with my biology teacher, that he was crazy in a great way. My students said, how much coffee do you drink in the morning? Please slow down. I said, I don't drink coffee. And they said, oh God, please don't start. and so I think part of it's that energy, right? And knowing that I care about them, right? Making that connection. So you have kids that'll push your buttons, right? And I don't really have them in research anymore because all those kids choose to be there. But when I taught earth science and biology, you definitely had kids that pushed your buttons. And I would say to myself, I will like this child, right? I will like this child. And it always worked. It really did. Like keeping that, not, oh, this kid's coming in again, right? But having that positive attitude that somehow you were going to find some way to connect with that kid makes all the difference. And I think that, can inspire them to do things. For the research class, I ask them what they're interested in. And then I let them know based on the broad thing that they're interested in, what some little things underneath that might be that they haven't thought about. And then I let them explore that. And even if they're going down a lane that I know won't wind up being something they can do, I let them get to that dead end by themselves because it's more important for them to get to that dead end and realize, oh, I have to back up and go in a different direction than me telling them.
Yeah. So it's a little combination of contagious enthusiasm and the process of discovery as these 2 teaching methods across those courses. And so for our students listening, our future educators, Christine, and this will be final question before handing you back to Jean, what advice would you give students who are thinking about becoming teachers?
Oh, find something that you like. But you know, if you're a high school student, take a look at those education programs in the different schools. Do you want a big school experience? Do you want a small school experience? Do you want to be close to home? Do you want to be far away? Those are all really important questions before you choose where you go. And it's okay to change, right? Like I wasn't sure, I almost changed to English because the bio was hard, the chem and the physics were hard. But I didn't, but part of that was I knew there were 3 biology teachers retiring when I graduated. And there would be, you know, job security and options, and there wasn't so much with English. But, you know, really think about, you know, what your interests are and what you could see yourself doing for a long time. And it changes, right? I said, I'm going to go coach coach basketball and be a biology teacher, right? That was my high school self. And I am 28 years later, and I'm not coaching basketball, although I have. And I'm not teaching biology anymore, and though I have, and I'm quite happy, right? I am fulfilled. Be fulfilled in what you do.
Any future advice for future science teachers?
Oh, the societies. You really need to get on Twitter, people, and go to conferences. You know, join your local science teachers convention, and even if you have to take a day off in the beginning and your school is not sending you, and you have to use some of the money that because you're still living with your parents that you don't have a lot of money. Pay to go to that conference, even if no one else is sending you there, because you will meet people that will then pay for you to go, right? It took me a while, but I don't pay anymore. People pay me to go.
Well, thank you, Christine. Thank you for a little insight to all of the work that you've done and to your passion for the sciences, a very contagious passion for the sciences. And we'll pass it back to Jeannie for the next round of questions.
Yeah, and just something I reinforce with our future educators all the time. I always encourage them to find their passion, right? So whether you like science and experimentation, whether you like to fix cars, whether you like to cook, whether you like computers and programming, or whether you like math and social studies, whatever you love to do, there is a place for you in the world of education. We need teachers who teach the things that you love. So I think it's important to expose students to those many pathways that you were talking about earlier. Let them explore, introduce them, put things in their way so they kind of trip over them and go, oh, this is kind of interesting. I didn't know this was an opportunity before, right? So putting those opportunities in people's way is a key to getting us to think a little more broadly about society. So I will also say, coming from our Q&A box, we have some fans. You've got some fan people who are really talking about the positive influence that you have. So one, so she talks about, what an impact you had on both of her children, both in the authentic science classes. Influences was what led them to what they are studying in college today. So she said, when she asked the kids about most influential educators, that you were at the top of that list. So that right there, coming from parents talking about the influence on children, I mean, it does the heart good to see, influence rippling forward. And then our other comment in the box is someone who is actually from Salem County Vocational High School and talks about farming. So thank you for bringing that up. It seems like we should be able to make a connection here. It seems like there needs to be a meet happening sometime soon
Put your
to
email
get everybody
in the
together.
chat so we can get that later.
Yes. So, and we have registration info. So Cassidy, if you are interested in making a connection, drop something in the chat box, or you can private message Christine or myself, or even email cfe@tcnj.edu and give us your contact information, and we will pass it along and make sure that this happens, because education's a small world, so we want to make sure that everybody talks to everybody. Yeah, networking is the key, and we learn a lot about that this year. Okay, so Christine, this is the not that this whole thing hasn't been fun and this hour hasn't gone by super quickly, but this is the part of the conversation where we have a common set of questions that we ask to every guest that attends our sessions. And so we would like to, at this time, move forward with it. So these are rapid fire answers. Don't think too deeply about them. Just whatever happens. Right?
Reel it in, Christine.
There you go. Just remember, we're PG-13. That's all I'm going to say. Okay, so number one, what's your favorite word?
Tree.
What's your least favorite word?
Cooking.
If you could have any superhero power, what would it be?
Translocation.
What was your favorite subject when you were at school?
Oh, science and math.
Okay. What subject or grade level do you wish you taught?
Oh, only high school. Yeah, no, yeah. I can't do the little ones. I'm sorry.
Okay. Which then leads me to what grade or subject level would you not want to teach?
Oh, yeah, not the little ones. No.
Hey, you know what? There's a lid for every pot, right? So there's an ideal teacher for every grade level and every subject area. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. What sound or noise do you love?
Very satisfying when they return a book in the library. At the one school is a very specific ding, and it is very satisfying.
Okay. And what sound or noise do you hate?
Oh, when you open the car windows and you get that reverberation because the acoustics are bad, that's horrendous.
Okay. If someone were to play you in a movie version of your life, who would you
Julia
want it to be?
Roberts.
Oh, okay. Yep. What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
Genealogist.
And if heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You done good, kid.
Well done. Well done. Thank you, Christine. It has been a pleasure working with you this afternoon. To all of our guests and friends, I just want to say that you will be able to see this recording in about a week on our website. We're going to, kind of working around Thanksgiving and those holidays. We're going to make sure that we get it all back together. But we are also going to be taking a break from the speaker series in December. And we hope that everyone will enjoy their time off with friends and family. But join us in January for our next speaker series event, where we will continue to talk about all things education. So until then, stay safe, be well, and enjoy the holidays. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time in the new year. We'll see you next year.
Thank you guys for having me.